Hello, my name is Hakon, and welcome back to my channel and another little episode in my synth DIY project. In this one, I'm just going to show you how I usually work when I design what I have been doing when I've been designing my front panels and what I'm doing now to design my new front panel. So this is, at the moment, the mock-up I have of my front panel. So what I do, let's zoom in a little bit here. I've got all the components that are going to be at the front panel, and I have the correct sizes for what shows at the front, and then I have in a sort of a line drawing at the back, I'm showing what will be behind the panel. Just so, especially when it comes to these things here, you can see the potentiometers, they take up a lot of space behind the panel and very little in front of the panel. And so it's very important to know exactly where they are to see that you have room for what you're doing. So, and also this switch takes up enormous amount of space, but I just really like this switch and I really want to use it for this particular project. So what we have here so far is the input section over here. So there's the jack input, which is for the Zoya, for the control port from the Zoya, which has both an input and output and a ground connection. And then it's going to be a potentiometer here to attenuate the input if needed. And then there is a switch which is there to switch between either the jack input or a banana jack input from the phenol itself to power the sequencer. And then down here, I haven't checked the size of this yet. I do have some copper pads, just a sort of a flat, round, disc-sized thing that I can panel mount that I'm going to use to connect to the diodes from the sequencer output, because interesting things happen when you touch the circuit at that point. And so I wanted to create a touch point on the front panel to have that effect. Then we have the 11-point switch here, which is going to be off and then 10 on positions. And that's going to be for the different outputs from the 4017, the 4017 chip, which is the decade counter. And then we have, for each of the outputs, there's also going to be an LED, an on-off switch for whether the step is on or not, a potentiometer to adjust the voltage, because my general idea now is that the voltage coming in will be, for the most part, or generally, it will be static. It will be the same value, the same voltage all the time. And of course, I can change the input voltage as well dynamically, which can create interesting effects. But that is going to be quite experimental and quite interesting, I think, when I start doing that. But for the most part, I will have a steady voltage coming in. And then, of course, it's attenuated to different output voltages with these potentiometers up here. Then we have a switch here, which is quite large behind the panel as well, as you can see, which is going to be for whether the input from the Zoya is going to the sequencer or if it is going to this set here. So this is going to be a separate output and input jack from the Zoya. So if I want to use the control port on the Zoya in a patch on the phenol without using the sequencer, this will allow me to do that. So this is where I can take the voltage output and input. Not sure if the colors are going to be right. And then there's going to be an LED as well to indicate when this is on. Which basically also is going to be, in a way, a sequencer on-off switch at the same time, because if this one is off, the sequencer will be off-ish, although I suppose I could still run it from the phenol input here. So haven't decided exactly how I'm wiring this up, but I could still run it from the phenol. And then we have these 10 outputs, which are the individual voltage outputs from each step of the sequencer. So they're running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 feels most natural to me. And of course, having individual outputs means I can send them to individual places in the phenol as well. And then I have one output here, which is for the entire sequence. I'm not sure how it behaves now if I try to use both the individual outputs and the sequencer output at the same time. I have not tested that yet. If that works, and it just changes the behavior a little bit, I'm going to have a lot of fun with that. But otherwise, I have a switch here, which is intended to either have the individual outputs or just the sequencer output. So that's going to decide which output is active. And that's where I'm at the moment. I think I'm relatively happy with this layout. I've thought about different things. For a small period of time, I was wondering whether I should have the LEDs for the steps be around the switch instead of at the individual potentiometers. I'm sort of leaning towards having them over here now, but I'm still considering this because that means that it looks very nice. So when it's up here, for instance, and that means it's a 5-step sequencer, then as it goes through the sequence, these steps will light up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We go back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The red light will always be on just because it's on, by the way. And then I also tried to see how it looked with some higher quality knobs. So I've got these ones here, which are, I can't remember the brand now, that I was wanting to use. I am going to consider replacing these. These are just cheap knobs here now. Eventually with these. Oops, that's not what I want to do. This needs to be grouped together. Okay, so, oh, still not. Okay, let's try again. Ah, no wonder I'm in the wrong pointer mode. Okay, so I was considering replacing these cheapo knobs with these quality ones at some point, which there's still going to be room for in the way I lay them out now. So I'm going to consider that when I lay them out, so that at some point, if I feel like it, I feel I can afford it, I'm going to replace these knobs. These knobs are quite expensive. They cost almost £3 a piece. So that is going to be something that, so they cost more than most of the other components put together of this build. So I'm going to keep that on hold for now, but I will keep it an option. And also at some point, I may replace the potentiometers with some better quality ones. The ones I'm using now are also quite low quality. So I'm just going to zoom out a bit now because I'll show you that this is also where I've been working on my DIY phenol stand. So this is the design for the stand that I made. I put in a phenol here, which is, oops, that's the, I need to select something over here probably. So that everything is to scale to the phenol, so I can see how things work together. This is my old panel design that I've been using until now. And then I also have up here some of the earlier iterations of panel designs. Let's see, where's the hand? There it is. So at some point I was going for a sort of a boucle style look, which I think is really nice. But again, that would need higher quality knobs. So one of the reasons I didn't do this is because I would have had to buy these expensive boucle style knobs. And then I did this test equipment green kind of style, a sort of Brühl or and Kjær kind of look, which I also really like. And then I eventually went with this kind of neutral but colorful kind of look here. Now, the reason I went with all these colors is actually because of the landscape stereo field interface that I later decided not to use in this way. So because I'm going back to a more sort of basic thing now where I don't need so many colors, I think my new panel is probably going to have fewer colors on them. Some of the colors will be there and they will be important, because they will show certain things. So for instance, for the Zoya control port in and out here, of course, one color will definitively be the output and one will be quite clearly be the input. I'm not decided how to code them yet in that sense, but there will be something there to indicate which is which. At least I will know what it is, and it will make sense to me. Another thing, of course, I still haven't worked out now. I will see whatever space remains now on my front panel is going to be devoted to attenuators primarily. So I will make something similar to this passive attenuator bank here now. And I have not decided yet whether to use these tall trimmer potentiometers, which are quite slim, and to do many of them, or to use these bigger potentiometers here now. Actually, I haven't created the shadow for these ones. I can actually do that now. I just need to find one first. So I should have shown you this on the video now, but what I'm doing now is I've got in my hand one of these small potentiometers here, and I'm just going to measure it and see what kind of size it is. I'm measuring it now, and it is the main pedestal of it is 11.5 millimeters by 9.5. I'm going to just do 11 by 12, I think. So first I'm going to make a rectangle which is 11 by 12 millimeters, like so. Well, let's see, that should be in front, and like so. Oh, why is this not coming up in front? Into front. Okay, that is a bit weird. Do I have any layers? Aha. I do have layers. Okay. Right. Layers are very useful if you want to keep track of where things are, but sometimes if you forget that you're using them, it doesn't look that good. Okay, so that is the general outline, and then of course it does have some pins sticking out just a little bit on the sides. I'm going to just do those as well. So on each side there is a 1 millimeter roughly. I'm going to say 1 by 2. So I'm going to do another little rectangle like so. I'm going to put that in the middle now. Let's see. So I'm going to move that up to there. There we are. And then I'm going to copy it across like so. And then there are the legs, which also stick out a little bit. Those are the supports. I'm also going to just give that, say, 1 millimeter for those, and 1.5. So I'm going to go 1 by 1.5 millimeters. And I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees, and that's going to be how much space between them. Just check that as well. It's not much really. I'm not doing this 100% accurately because I don't need to. The basic thing is that the components don't interfere with each other and that there's no risk of solders getting in the way of each other is the main idea behind doing this. Let's see, so there's going to be a space that is roughly something like that between them, like so. So I'm just going to see where is my so my alignment. Okay, so then I'm going to center these on there. Okay, so now that is roughly the outline there of one of these. I'm just going to group these together now. And then I'm going to change them to the same look as the other ones. So I'm just going to do like that. Oh, that wasn't intentional. Let's see, I'm going to try that again. I think I also selected the actual knob itself there, so I'm going to do like that and unselect the knob, see if that works now. And yeah, that is better. Oh, except it now became invisible. That is a bit strange. Let's see, is it layer again? No. Okay, I must have picked the color from the wrong place. This happens sometimes. There, okay, I'm sure the path is selected. Okay. Right. Okay, that's better. Okay, so now it looks like that. And that shows us the correct outline for this, and it's also grouped together. And the way I've done these this set of buttons here now is that it's copies of this one here. So in Illustrator, there's a very useful thing. You can use transforms. So now I've got 15.24 millimeter horizontal spacing here. And so I'm going to do the same with this background bit, the stuff that is behind the panel. So I'm going to go to Effects, Transform, and I'm going to do 15.24, wasn't it? And 4 copies. And then I'm going to check the height is also 15.24. Yeah, so I'm going to do it again. Select this, Effect, Distort and Transform, Transform, Vertical, 15.24 millimeters, and 3 copies like so. And then we have the indication at the back here exactly what these are. Now these are panel mount potentiometers rather, no, sorry, they are PCB mount rather than panel mount, which means that they need a PCB, and of course the pins need to be spaced exactly correctly for the pitch of the PCB. So when I change the spacing between these, it has to match up with the spacing of PCBs or these kind of Vero board. So if I move this now, let's see, I'll just group these together now. So if I do this, because I didn't measure perfectly the sizing now, so I'm not sure if this actually is sized correctly. Doesn't look like it is actually, but I'll have to double check that now if the PCB behind there is actually sized correctly. But the idea is that these have to match up with the holes in one of the Vero boards, and so I can only then move them in increments of the pitch, that is the distance between 2 holes of a Vero board. So that is the idea anyway, and I'll have to double check my measurements to make sure that this is indeed correct. This may not be, I'm not 100% sure. So that is how I'm working with this. Other things I've done, of course, I'll just show you now, is all the components that I've sort of made that I haven't been using. So I've got a MIDI plug here. I've got some knobs that I've got. I've got a banana jack that is made out of bronze that look like that. I was doing so these are the different Buchla style knobs, and then we also have here, that's, I haven't made a diagram of that, that's just the normal DB9 plug, which I was thinking for a while to use for the interface to the landscape stereo field. So different things like that. And over, let's see, over here, also for a while I had a power input here as well for the MIDI Muso, which I'm not using anymore, unfortunately, because it just didn't behave, which is a big shame. And yeah, so every time I do this and I add something new, I got new components. Of course, now I also got these switches, and I've got my 6.35 jack here, 1/4-inch jack, and I've got, yeah, this switch, and I've got these knobs here, which I may or may not get, I'm not sure yet, but they will certainly match style-wise the main switch knob here. So that is what I've been doing with my design so far. I'm quite liking the look of it at the moment, and yeah, I hope you found this interesting, and I'll see you again in my next video. Thanks for watching, and goodbye for now. Bye bye.